The Galactic Council chamber on Zeno Prime hummed with anticipation. Representatives from 12 different species had gathered for the quarterly diplomatic summit, their varied anatomies adjusting to the hexagonal, crystal-embedded seats designed for maximum comfort across species. The chamber's transparent dome revealed the breathtaking view of 3 moons aligned in perfect harmony, a rare astronomical event considered auspicious for interplanetary negotiations. Major Marcus Reynolds stepped through the security checkpoint, straightening his Earth Defense Force dress uniform. The diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council was his first major assignment since promotion, and he intended to make an impression. His polished combat boots clicked against the polished marble floor, a sound that had accompanied military personnel across 6 millennia of Earth's history. Identification and registration. Earth representative requested the Vorik security officer, his compound eyes scanning Marcus with mechanical precision. The insectoid's mandibles clicked as he processed the credentials. Marcus presented his diplomatic authorization chip. Major Marcus Reynolds, military and diplomatic representative of Earth. I've registered all required documentation through the Galactic Registry. The Vorik officer, Lieutenant Kextool, inserted the chip into a crystalline console. Immediately, amber lights began pulsing across the security terminal. Kextool's compound eyes widened, all 6 segments focusing simultaneously on the readout. Interesting, Kextool muttered, mandibles clicking more rapidly. System indicates Protocol 77 Alpha activation. Protocol what? Marcus asked, retrieving his credentials. Is there a problem with my authorization? Before Kextool could respond, the chamber's ambient lighting shifted from peaceful blue to a cautionary amber. A melodic announcement in Universal Standard echoed through the halls. Attention all representatives. Today's scheduled Galactic Council meeting is postponed indefinitely. Please consult your delegation advisors for further instructions. Confusion erupted among the gathered delegates. Species of all forms began communicating in their native languages, translators working overtime to keep pace with the sudden barrage of questions. Marcus watched as representatives who had been settling into their seats now stood and looked around in bewilderment. A tall, crystalline being approached the security checkpoint, her translucent body refracting light in complex patterns that indicated heightened emotional states. Admiral Bellinara of the Crystalline Confederacy, recognizable by the intricate naval insignias embedded within her crystalline structure. Lieutenant Kextool, she addressed the Vorik officer. Explain this disruption immediately. Kextool's antennae flattened against his carapace in deference. Admiral, Protocol 77 Alpha has been activated. The Earth representative's combat readiness indicators triggered the automatic security response. Both turned to look at Marcus, who stood bewildered, trying to process what was happening. My combat readiness? I'm here on a diplomatic mission, Marcus protested. Admiral Bellinara's crystalline form pulsed with colors that Marcus's translator interpreted as skepticism. You are wearing combat boots. Major Reynolds, standard issue Earth Defense Force tactical footwear, if I'm not mistaken. Marcus looked down at his boots, then back at the Admiral in confusion. These are part of my formal military uniform. I'm representing Earth's Defense Force in an official capacity. Perhaps on Earth, such distinctions seem trivial, Admiral Bellinara replied, her tone measured but firm. Here, they have significant implications. Across the chamber, representatives were being ushered toward various exits by their respective security details. Some cast suspicious glances toward Marcus, while others appeared merely annoyed at the disruption. A holographic notification appeared before Admiral Bellinara. She studied it briefly before addressing Marcus again. The High Command Council requests your presence in Conference Room Zeta for immediate consultation. Lieutenant Kextool will escort you. Wait, Marcus said, standing his ground. I need to understand what's happening. You're postponing an entire galactic diplomatic summit because of my boots? Admiral Bellinara's crystalline structure pulsed with what Marcus's translator identified as resignation, mixed with concern. Major Reynolds, I understand your confusion, but this is a matter of established protocol that predates Earth's admission to the Galactic Council by several millennia. That still doesn't explain. Your footwear, she interrupted, has triggered Protocol 77 Alpha, which mandates postponement of all Council proceedings when an Earth representative displays combat indicators. The boots you wear are one such indicator. Marcus looked down at his standard-issue combat boots again, baffled. These are just boots. Comfortable, durable footwear. How could they possibly? The explanation awaits in Conference Room Zeta, Admiral Bellinara said firmly. I suggest we proceed there without further delay. Lieutenant Kextool led the way, his segmented legs moving with mechanical precision through the now emptying halls. Marcus followed, noting how other species gave him a wider berth than before, their movements betraying varying degrees of caution or concern. Conference room. Zeta was smaller than the main chamber, but no less impressive. A circular table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs adapted for various physiologies. One wall displayed a constantly updating star map of the galaxy, while another showed real-time translation of conversations occurring within the room. Already seated at the table were several high-ranking officials representing various species. Marcus recognized the Hive Mind Collective's Commander Thexwell, whose multiple bodies occupied 3 seats but functioned as a single entity. The commander's primary form nodded in acknowledgement as Marcus entered. A Gorthanian general, whose species resembled Earth's ancient saurians, but with a metallic exoskeleton, rose from his seat. The translator identified him as General Vorax, military commissioner of the Gorthanian Defense Alliance. This is the Earth representative? General Vorax asked, his voice a rumbling bass that seemed to vibrate through the room. The one who arrived in combat configuration? I arrived in formal military dress, Marcus corrected, taking the empty seat offered to him. As is appropriate for a diplomatic representative of Earth's Defense Force, General Vorax's bioluminescent eyes narrowed. You wear the boots of war to a peace council and claim ignorance of the implications. Before Marcus could respond, Commander Thexwell's primary form raised a hand for attention. Perhaps we should begin with the historical context. General, the Earth representative appears genuinely unaware of Protocol 77 Alpha and its significance. A holographic projection activated at the center of the table, displaying a timeline that stretched back thousands of years. Major Reynolds, Commander Thexwell began, each of his 3 forms speaking in perfect unison. What you need to understand is that Protocol 77 Alpha was established 4,272 years ago, following the Centaurian conflict, in which Earth was not yet an interstellar participant. The hologram shifted to show historical footage of various interspecies conflicts. Marcus recognized none of them from Earth's historical records. The protocol was designed as an early warning system to prevent diplomatic gatherings from becoming targets of military action, continued the commander. Various indicators were identified that might signal hostile intent from any participant species. Admiral Bellinara joined the explanation. For humans specifically, combat boots were identified as a primary indicator of military readiness and potential aggressive intent. Marcus blinked in surprise. But that's absurd. Boots are just standard military attire. They don't indicate any intent to engage in combat. From a human perspective, perhaps, General Vorax interjected. But xenoarchaeological evidence suggests otherwise. At his words, the door to the conference room opened, admitting a willowy being with pale green skin and elongated fingers. The newcomer carried what appeared to be an ancient artifact in a containment field. Professor Velterin, Admiral Bellinara acknowledged. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. The xenoarchaeologist nodded, placing the containment field on the table. Inside floated what Marcus immediately recognized as a weathered, ancient combat boot, not dissimilar in design from the ones he currently wore. This specimen was recovered from the ruins of what you humans call the First World War, Professor Velterin explained, her voice melodic and precise. Similar footwear has been documented in every major Earth conflict, for which we have archaeological evidence, approximately 6,000 Earth years of continuous usage. Combat boots are practical, Marcus defended. They provide ankle support, protection from elements, durability in harsh conditions. Their use in warfare is practical, not symbolic. Perhaps to humans, Professor Veltrin countered. But cross-species analysis reveals a different pattern. She activated her own holographic display, showing comparative data across thousands of species. Most sentient species develop specialized footwear for combat only when they intend to engage in warfare. Outside of actual combat situations, ceremonial or diplomatic footwear takes precedence. Earth appears unique, added Commander Thexwell. Your species continues to wear combat-ready footwear, even in non-combat situations, including diplomatic engagements where others would specifically avoid signals of military readiness. Marcus tried to process this information. So, because I'm wearing standard military boots, the entire Galactic Council thinks I'm here to… what? Start a war? The automated system detected the combat indicator and activated Protocol 77 Alpha. Lieutenant Kextool explained. It's a precautionary measure, not an accusation. Though some species might interpret it as a deliberate show of force, General Vorax added, his metallic scales shifting in what Marcus's translator identified as a gesture of suspicion. This is ridiculous, Marcus said, frustration building. I came here to negotiate trade agreements and security cooperation, not to threaten anyone. These are just boots. Perhaps we should consult the psychological warfare experts, suggested Admiral Bellinara. They might provide insight into the cultural disconnection we're experiencing. At her words, a holographic communication link established, revealing a small, avian-like being with iridescent feathers and oversized eyes. Dr. Pipser of the Zephyrin Institute for Cross-Species Psychology, the translator announced as the being came into focus. I've reviewed the preliminary data, Dr. Pipsor began without preamble. This appears to be a classic case of unintentional threat, signaling across species barriers. Doctor, please explain to Major Reynolds why his footwear causes such concern, Admiral Bellinara requested. The psychologist adjusted something off-screen before continuing. Major, from our analysis of Earth culture, your species has normalized combat readiness in ways that most other species find alarming. Your entertainment, sports, even casual interactions often include elements that other species reserve exclusively for warfare or life-threatening situations. Dr. Pipser displayed images of Earth sports, competitive business practices, and even children's games. What humans view as harmless competition or entertainment, many species interpret as preparations for or simulations of combat. That's just human nature, Marcus argued. Competition drives innovation, excellence. Indeed, Dr. Pipser agreed. But your normalization of combat signals, like tactical footwear in diplomatic settings, creates unconscious anxiety among other species. When an Earth representative arrives wearing what has been historically documented as battle gear, alarm signals activate across multiple species' instinctual response systems. Marcus looked around the room, suddenly seeing the situation through new eyes. Every species present had evolved different threat recognition systems, different survival instincts. What seemed normal to him might genuinely appear threatening to them. So this Protocol 77 Alpha, he said slowly. It's activated because my boots are interpreted as a sign that Earth is preparing for conflict. Precisely, Commander Thexwell confirmed. The automated system detects the combat indicator and postpones all proceedings as a precautionary measure. Can't we just override it? Marcus asked. Now that we understand the misunderstanding. General Vorax's bioluminescent eyes flashed. Override a security protocol because the human claims ignorance? I think not. For all we know, this could be an intentional psychological warfare tactic. That's absurd, Marcus protested. Earth has no interest in conflict with any Galactic Council member. Then, perhaps, Admiral Bellinara suggested, her crystalline form shifting to a more neutral color pattern. You would be willing to change into non-combat footwear for the duration of the council meeting? Marcus hesitated. The combat boots were part of his formal military uniform, a symbol of his service and rank. Removing them felt oddly like surrendering something essential. I don't have alternative footwear with me, he admitted. This is convenient, General Vorax muttered, his translator barely catching the comment. Professor Velterin stepped forward. If I may suggest a solution, we could provide the Major with traditional diplomatic footwear. This would satisfy Protocol 77 Alpha, while allowing the council meeting to proceed. I must consult with my superiors, Marcus said, reaching for his communication device. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Kextool interrupted. All external communications are automatically restricted under Protocol 77 Alpha. It's another security measure. Marcus felt trapped. If he refused to change his footwear, he'd be confirming their suspicions and potentially damaging Earth's standing in the Galactic Council. If he agreed, he'd be abandoning an element of his military identity and possibly exceeding his authority. I need to understand the full implications here, he said carefully. If I agree to change my footwear, the council meeting proceeds as planned. No other restrictions or suspicions directed toward Earth. Protocol 77 Alpha would be deactivated, Commander Thexwell confirmed. Normal diplomatic proceedings would resume. And if I refuse? General Vorax's metallic scales shifted ominously. Then the Gorthanian Defense Alliance would interpret it as a hostile signal and withdraw from all negotiations involving Earth. That's extreme, Marcus protested. Is it? Countered the general. Your species has a documented history of warfare spanning thousands of years. Your representatives wear battle gear to peace talks. From our perspective, caution seems warranted. Marcus looked around the room, weighing his options. The situation was absurd, diplomatic relations hanging on his choice of footwear. Yet he could see the genuine concern in the alien representative's postures and expressions. An elegant, blue-skinned being, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. The translator identified her as Ambassador Zyla of the Zarian Confederation. Perhaps we might propose a compromise, she suggested, her voice calm and measured. Major Reynolds could change into alternative footwear for the duration of the council meeting as a gesture of cultural sensitivity. In exchange, the council agrees to review Protocol 77 Alpha for potential modification, recognizing that Earth's cultural norms may differ from historical patterns. The suggestion seemed to ease tensions around the table. Even General Vorax's aggressive posture relaxed slightly. That seems reasonable, Marcus conceded. Though I would need to clarify that this doesn't establish a precedent for Earth representatives abandoning their military uniform standards in all diplomatic situations. Noted. Commander Thexwell agreed. This would be a specific accommodation for Galactic Council proceedings. Admiral Bellinara's crystalline form brightened. Then we have a path forward. Lieutenant Kextool, please arrange for appropriate diplomatic footwear to be provided to Major Reynolds. Wait, Marcus said, holding up a hand. Before I agree, I want to be clear about something. Outside of council meetings, I will continue to wear my complete military uniform, including regulation footwear. This is non-negotiable. General Vorax began to object, but Ambassador Zyla intervened smoothly. That seems a fair boundary. Protocol 77 Alpha specifically governs council proceedings, not individual representatives' choices outside the chamber. With reluctant nods from around the table, the compromise was accepted. Lieutenant Kextool left briefly, returning with what appeared to be simple black slip-on shoes, made from a synthetic material. These are standard diplomatic footwear, he explained. designed to be comfortable for human physiology while meeting security requirements. Marcus examined the offered shoes with barely concealed distaste. They looked like something a civilian might wear to a casual function. Nothing like the polished, structured combat boots that completed his uniform. "Could I have a moment of privacy to change?" he requested. "Of course," Admiral Bellinara acknowledged, gesturing toward a small antechamber. Inside the private room, Marcus sat heavily on a bench designed to accommodate multiple species' anatomies. He stared at the civilian shoes, feeling an irrational resistance to the change. His combat boots had carried him through training, through challenges, through his rise in rank. They represented discipline, readiness, capability, values central to his identity as a soldier. And yet, here in this alien environment, those same boots apparently symbolized something entirely different: aggression, threat, the potential for violence. With a sigh, Marcus unlaced his boots and set them aside. The civilian shoes felt insubstantial on his feet, lacking the support and weight he was accustomed to. He stood, adjusting his uniform, feeling oddly vulnerable. When he returned to the conference room, he noticed immediate changes in the other representatives' postures. General Vorax's aggressive stance had softened, while Admiral Bellinara's crystalline form pulsed with colors that suggested approval. "The combat readiness indicator has been neutralized," Lieutenant Kextool confirmed, checking his security console. "Protocol 77 Alpha has been deactivated." "Excellent," Commander Thexwell said, all three of his forms nodding in unison. The council meeting can now proceed as scheduled. As they prepared to return to the main chamber, Professor Velterin approached Marcus. "Major Reynolds, if you're interested, I could show you our archaeological collection of Earth military artifacts sometime. It might provide insight into how other species perceive human military culture." "I'd like that," Marcus replied, genuinely curious now about how his civilization appeared through alien eyes. The main Galactic Council chamber had returned to its normal state when they re-entered. Ambient lighting restored to peaceful blue. Representatives who had been evacuating now returned to their seats, some casting curious glances at Marcus's changed footwear. Taking his assigned position at the Earth delegation's platform, Marcus felt strangely self-conscious. He wondered how many other unintentional signals he might be broadcasting simply by following what he considered normal protocol. The council chairperson, a serene century whose species communicated through controlled bioluminescence, called the meeting to order. The translator converted the patterns of light into universal standard. "We welcome all representatives to this quarterly gathering of the Galactic Council. We apologize for the brief delay and thank you for your patience." No mention was made of Protocol 77 Alpha or Marcus's footwear, a diplomatic courtesy that he appreciated. As the meeting progressed through its agenda, Marcus found himself increasingly engaged in the substantive discussions of interstellar trade agreements, shared security concerns, and scientific cooperation. His presentation on Earth's proposal for a regional economic treaty was received with unexpected enthusiasm, particularly from species that had seemed most suspicious earlier. By the session's conclusion, Marcus had secured provisional agreements that exceeded his mission parameters, a diplomatic victory that would strengthen Earth's position in the galactic community. As representatives began to disperse, Admiral Bellinara approached him. "Major Reynolds, your economic proposal was quite impressive. The Crystalline Confederacy is interested in further discussions." "Thank you, Admiral," Marcus replied. "I'd be happy to arrange a dedicated session to explore potential synergies." "Excellent," she said, her crystalline form shimmering with what his translator identified as satisfaction. "And, may I add, your willingness to adapt to council customs has been noted and appreciated." Marcus nodded, glancing down at the civilian shoes he still wore. Cultural flexibility seems to be an essential diplomatic skill. "Indeed," the Admiral agreed. "Though I understand you'll be returning to your standard footwear outside these chambers." As soon as this meeting concludes, Marcus confirmed. They're part of my uniform. Admiral Bellinara's form pulsed, with what might have been amusement. I expect nothing less, but perhaps this experience will inform future Earth diplomatic protocols. As the chamber emptied, Marcus returned to the antechamber where he had left his combat boots. He changed back with a sense of relief, the familiar weight and support of military footwear restoring his sense of professional identity. When he emerged, he found Commander Thexwell waiting in the corridor. All three of his forms engaged in separate activities while maintaining their unified consciousness. Major Reynolds, the commander's primary form, greeted him. The Council's Administrative Committee has reviewed the events of today and made a preliminary recommendation regarding Protocol 77 Alpha. That was fast, Marcus observed. The Hive Mind Collective processes information efficiently, Commander Thexwell replied without false modesty. The recommendation, which will be formally presented at the next session, is to modify the protocol to specify that combat footwear is considered a combat indicator for Earth representatives only when worn within the council chamber itself. So I can wear my boots everywhere except the actual meeting room? Precisely. This accommodation recognizes Earth's cultural norms while preserving the security concerns of other species. Marcus nodded, appreciating the reasonable compromise. Thank you, Commander. I'll ensure this information is incorporated into Earth's diplomatic guidelines. There is one more thing, the Commander added, his secondary form producing a data crystal. The Xenopsychology Division has prepared this briefing on how various species perceive human behavioral patterns. You might find it helpful in future interactions. Marcus accepted the crystal, genuinely interested. I appreciate this. Today has been educational. For all parties involved. Commander Thexwell agreed. Cultural misunderstandings often present the greatest challenges in interspecies relations, but also the greatest opportunities for growth. As Marcus made his way back toward the Earth delegation's quarters, his combat boots clicking rhythmically against the polished floor, he reflected on the absurdity of the day's events. A galactic diplomatic summit postponed over footwear. Yet beneath that surface, absurdity lay complex layers of history, psychology, and cross-species perception. He passed Lieutenant Kextool at a security checkpoint, noting how the Vorak officer's compound eyes briefly tracked his restored combat boots before returning to their scanning pattern. All in order. Major Reynolds? The lieutenant inquired. Yes, Marcus replied with a slight smile. Though I've learned that in order means different things to different species. An astute observation, Kextool acknowledged. Safe travels until the next council gathering. In his quarters, Marcus recorded his mission report, detailing both the diplomatic achievements and the cultural insights gained. He emphasized the need for Earth's representatives to receive more comprehensive briefings on how human military symbols might be perceived by other species. He concluded his report with a personal observation. Today, I learned that something as simple as a pair of boots can carry meanings far beyond their intended purpose. As Earth expands its presence in the galactic community, we must remain alert to how our most basic assumptions may appear through alien eyes. What we see as tradition or practicality, others may perceive as threatening or aggressive. In diplomacy, perception often matters more than intention. Setting aside the report for transmission to Earth Command, Marcus glanced down at his combat boots, now seeing them with new awareness. They were still the same boots, practical, durable, a symbol of his military service, but now he understood they could also be seen as a declaration of readiness for conflict, a signal of potential aggression. He would continue to wear them with pride outside the council chamber, maintaining Earth's military traditions. But he would do so with a newfound consciousness of what they might communicate to others, a lesson in cross-cultural understanding that no diplomatic handbook could have provided. The next day, as Marcus prepared for bilateral meetings with the Crystalline Confederacy, He packed both his combat boots and the civilian diplomatic shoes. Cultural flexibility, he had discovered, was indeed an essential skill in galactic diplomacy, especially when something as seemingly insignificant as footwear could postpone peace talks across the stars. The Council's Administrative Committee formalized the modification to Protocol 77 Alpha the following week. The new regulation specified Earth representatives must transition from combat footwear to approved diplomatic alternatives before entering the Council chamber, but may maintain their traditional military dress, including combat boots, in all other diplomatic contexts. It was a small change in galactic terms, a minor footnote in the vast history of interspecies relations. But for Marcus Reynolds and future Earth diplomats, it represented a profound lesson in cross-cultural perception and the hidden language of symbols that transcended words. As he boarded his transport for the return journey to Earth, combat boots firmly laced and his new diplomatic shoes packed carefully in his luggage, Marcus reflected that true diplomacy sometimes meant understanding not just what you say, but what you unwittingly communicate through every aspect of your presence. In the complex dance of galactic politics, even footwear could speak volumes, a reality he would never again take for granted. And as the Galactic Council representatives watched the Earth transport depart, many noted with knowing glances that Major Reynolds had boarded with his combat boots restored, true to his word and to his culture's traditions. But they also noted the small case he carried, which they knew contained the diplomatic alternatives he had accepted. It was, perhaps, the perfect symbol of the compromise reached. 2 sets of footwear for 2 different contexts, acknowledging both tradition and adaptation. In the vast cosmic theater of interspecies diplomacy, sometimes the smallest steps, quite literally, could make the greatest difference.